Hello, team, and welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today. A lot of water, a lot of land. There's some trade routes going on in the bottom left and also the top right of the map. It's a 2v2 today between Desobnerin and Tim Baylor, and Animorph and Tomahawk. So Desobnerin's going to be in blue, Tim Baylor's in red, Animorph in orange, and Tomahawk in teal. If you're wondering where the 1v1 grand finals are, we've been casting a lot of the 1v1 tournament action from the most recent Line War T1 2023 tournament. There's something in the works. It may involve another YouTuber, maybe some live streaming. We'll see. Keep your eye out for any more updates on that. It is on the way. We will be covering it. And here we go. Alpha team's opening up immediately with the trade route. Desobnerin and Tim Baylor building their towns and ports on each end of this thing. Desoblerin's got another town and port right here for a very strong economic start. Tim Baylor's got 3 docks starting on this little island, so Tim Baylor's going to have a lot of money to work with because they didn't pick all the starting territories up to those 6 that you are allowed. Desoblerin's got a factory on the way, and if we just go big picture, we can see Alpha team on the right-hand side. Bravo team on the left-hand side. Animorph in the bottom going 3 industry, town and port, 2 docks and a quick gas, and building a transport boat to get these infantry across and start capping more land. And Tomahawk in the north is going 2 airport, helicopter with a submarine pen, a dock, and also a quick refinery to power all these energy units. On a map like this, where there's going to be a lot of Navy potentially, it makes sense that energy is going to be a big priority for both teams to be able to secure it and make sure that they keep it alive and intact so that they can move their boats. There's no quicker way to lose a Navy map than to run out of energy and get all your ships pinned in different locations on the map. So this one trade route is done now for Desobnerin, so merchant ships will be getting created. Sovereign follows up with a second dock. And surprisingly, I would have expected this trade route line to be lit up as well, if maybe in Tim Baylor's view. Okay, exactly. So Tim Baylor can see this and is building transport boats as well. So Alpha Team has 3 trade routes now completed and building merchant ships. This is a lot of economy. And we'd probably expect to see Alpha Team with the lead. We can check in the graphs after the game. Because besides Animorph's industry and what is going to be a city in the bottom left, Tomahawk hasn't gone for any economy themselves quite yet. There is a town and port that Teal could build. Strikers now out of this airport after the 2 helicopters, and the first submarine itself is finished for Tomahawk to start capping a lot of those water territories. First transport boats are about to dock and start dropping off their cargo and all the economy that Alpha Team is invested in this. And here's Tim Baylor's first refinery, going for 3 cruisers at a time out of these docks. So when it comes down to the Navy numbers, there's 5 docks for Alpha Team. Tomahawk's got a second dock on the way, so right now it's going to be 4 docks for Bravo Team. And Animorph building a power plant immediately to make sure that they have enough energy to move these boats around. Destroyers at the moment for Orange, who will start capping close to Tomahawk. And we probably will expect to see an aircraft carrier come out of one of these docks for Tomahawk at some point, so that these strikers can transfer off the airport, freeing up more room for planes to be built. And otherwise, this is going to be a slow-ish build-up to the game. Airport now in the central island for Desobnerin. If we go big picture, we can see there's still a lot of time before both teams see each other. And it'll be interesting to see if Alpha Team can turn this early eco, which is normally very greedy to get 3 trade routes up this early, but because they've had the space to do it, we'll see if Alpha Team can translate this into units to be able to win this game. There's actually a bunch of trade routes on the left-hand side of this starting island for Desobnerin as well. But luckily for Bravo Team, Animorph's starting to land on this little island that has the connecting town and port for these routes. First two strikers are done for Tomahawk. The third and fourth are on the way. There's 3 submarines. And we did see earlier that Tim Baylor is also going for a submarine pen by the 3 docks that have completed these 2 cruisers at this point. This is the Sovereign's first energy, first refinery on the way. And we'll see what sort of planes come out of this airport. It is helicopters immediately. One SAM from this factory, gonna start digging in the mountains. Shuffling around, building its own sandbags. And there's no real way to check the team economies in a replay without cycling through all the different players and checking, but certainly Alpha Team would have an economic advantage at the moment, even with this town from Animorph. A town is generally more or less worth what one trade route is. Pardon me, when I say town, I meant a city that Animorph has. That city there is worth about what a trade route is. One single one of them. The Sovereign's going to drop off these infantry on the bottom to secure this town and port so that another trade route could be built. I mean, they're relatively safe trade routes in the back here. Boats can go down along the south if Bravo Team were to send boats that way. But this choke very naturally makes it so that at some point the Sovereign could build navy here and really stop any Bravo Team boats from getting in behind here and destroying all these trade routes. And the same thing in the front here. Tim Baylor has a very natural choke to prevent Bravo Team from just rolling on by and getting on top of all the ports. Another town and potentially a port on the way for Tim Baylor. This top right town and port is actually connected to this town and port and this one as well, which is great news for Alpha Team, because it should be relatively easy to secure those positions. 2 forward airports now for Animorph, powering off of this city economy. And what is the equivalent of 2 refineries now that Animorph has. Each power plant is about a third as efficient as a refinery. But the bonus of them is that you can build them anywhere, like we're seeing Animorph do here. Going for a town as well. And Tomahawk at this point has 6 strikers, about to be 8 strikers. And with some micro, these strikers could actually land on Animorph's airports and get closer to the front lines. Neither side will know exactly where the other one is. I mean, this is Bravo Team's vision, so they can probably assume that Alpha Team's on the right-hand side of the map, and same thing with Alpha Team. They can probably just assume that Bravo's on the left-hand side. Port now on the way for Tim Baylor, who also has an airport close to this depot. And this depot is great because it's going to be in range of the Sovereign's energies, these refineries, so they could get hooked up to this. And it's a very easy way for Alpha Team to start sharing this energy. The Sovereign's building this town, which as mentioned before is connected to this top right town and port that Tim Baylor is working on. But it's so many cruisers. Pardon me. So many cruisers for Tim Baylor here. And not as many cruisers at all for Tomahawk. So no way that Teal's going to be able to take a straight up naval engagement. And pardon me, and it'll be very difficult for Bravo Team to build up enough navy to take this on. Tim Baylor's had multiple cycles of building only cruisers at this point. So we'll have to see dedicated cruisers out of Tomahawk's docks, and then potentially linking up with Animorph's docks as well. Animorph's got this 3rd dock close to the front and going for bombers on these airports. The bombers are almost in range of the Sovereign's airports. The Sovereign's now got a 2nd one on the way. 4 SAMs dug in a great location. And importantly, bombers can't go on aircraft carriers. So if these airports aren't in range for Orange, at some point, Animorph's going to have to make an airstrip to get the bombers even closer. Animorph's now officially landed on DeSovereign's starting island, where Alpha Team is, building a factory on the other end of this mountain range, and a submarine pen in the south with the port on the way from this town location to set up this fourth trade route for Alpha Team. Slow pan across the map because it looks the coolest. We can see that DeSovereign has got another factory on the way in those mountains at home. Tomahawk and Tim Baylor sort of squaring off in the north. This is the vision for Tomahawk. So can't quite see Tim Baylor, and I don't think Tim Baylor can see Tomahawk either. Animorph building more towns and ports. Once Orange completes this town and port, there will be a trade route for Alpha Team. Or for Bravo Team, pardon me. And on island maps like this, something that's interesting to note is that it becomes very difficult to trade money with your ally because you have to have bordering land territory in order to transfer money to your teammates. So while DeSovereign and Tim Baylor have these three territories bordering each other and they can at least exchange a little bit of money, that is not the case for Bravo Team at the moment. Second refinery for Tomahawk, who's starting to build 2 aircraft carriers to send some of these strikers onto. And that'll be huge. If Tomahawk can build up a navy to protect the aircraft carriers with strikers on them have the exact same range as where airports with strikers on them could go. So say like a aircraft carrier is just parking out right here. Everything, at least on this front part of the base for Alpha Team, is in range of what is going to be 6 strikers since aircraft carriers can carry 3 each. Port in the south is nearly done. The crane goes down. We'll see this light up any second now. And Sam's and another barracks for Animorph on this island. Or rather, in this mountain range. Two interceptors and some bombers now on the way. For DeSovereign, Animorph's moved up these destroyers, cruisers, and missile boats into a great location. If Animorph could magically keep these missile boats here, there's 4 of them, they'll do great against all these airplanes because naturally when these planes take off, they have to fly over these boats. We've seen so many times in this series, one of the best ways to counter planes, if you can do it, is to get the SAMs and missile boats as close to your opponent's airports as possible. So the second the planes take off, they're getting hit. And this is really first contact in the game, in the bottom. A 3rd factory on the way for Animorph, so starting to build up some pushing power. The Sovereign's gonna have to deal with this over time. And the Sovereign's got a power plant as well on the far right. The ports are going up, at least the first port for the Sovereign. And Bravo Team definitely sees this. Sees that this port is going up. They probably know that a bunch of trade routes are already completed. It'll be interesting to see if Bravo Team decides to push here, seeing that a lot of these boats from Alpha Team have black smoke on them, indicating that they can't move. Because it's important that Bravo Team doesn't necessarily just let this town go up, but they also don't want to lose all their boats in a hasty naval engagement. 4th dock from Tim Baylor, who also still has these 2 submarine pens. There's a transport plane on this airport and some commandos being made, so commando drops definitely on the menu here, since it's a menu. And the merchant boats are trading. These 3 subs are great for DeSovereign, again, like just making sure that nothing gets through. And DeSovereign with these 3 power plants, it is important because we hear that beep beep of the low energy noise. We're potentially going to see a fight here between Animorph's Navy and Dissobran's Navy. And I don't think that Toma can really take on all these cruisers. But does Orange have enough? It's a healthy cruiser count for Blue. It's 2 cruisers for Orange. There's the possibility that some of these blue planes get involved in the action if Dissobran has the energy to send them out. And cruisers are great. I mean, they're the pound for pound champion of naval engagements. But there are a decent amount of orange boats. We can see the lines of all these Alpha Team planes that are about to show up. And actually, some of these are Tomahawk Strikers off of these 2 aircraft carriers. And this is certainly a good map for aircraft carriers, or at least there will be an applicable use for them on this map. Because the alternative is building airstrips everywhere, but the flexibility of these aircraft carriers to move from the north here and hit all this infrastructure, and then come down to the south and hit everything. It's a lot of flexibility. The Sovereign must have destroyed their own submarine pen here. There's nothing from Orange that could have done this. And here comes 6 bombers from Animorph in the south. This southern push is very important. It'd be huge for Bravo Team if they can actually round this corner and start threatening up this island. But the good news for Alpha Team is that they were able to set up both these towns and ports. This is a huge amount of income that Alpha Team is now making. There's a 3rd aircraft carrier that's been created. 3 strikers going to it right now. A 4th one is on the way. And the first trade route is now done for Animorph. Merchant ships, the coolest unit in the game, being created. And the bombers are going to do a lot of damage. The strikers on this blue airport aren't really quite in range of these bombers. Probably on the lower end of how far they can fly. The Sovereigns dug in these artillery pieces by this energy site, pardon me, by this energy site in preparation for these orange boats to show up and try to snipe it. It's a lot of artillery pieces and there's a good arc to them. They'd be able to all hit the boats that are attacking that refinery, so it'll be tough for Orange to take this out when Dissobran inevitably does build this. Then we probably expect to see Animorph put down an airstrip at any point here. And following up with a 3rd factory on this landmass. And we go top-down view. We have a split map situation. More trade routes for Alpha Team though, that's important to note. Great drop from Tim Baylor on this top left island. And great response from Tomahawk to see that and start sending the planes to deal with it. And this is huge. Animorph building a rocket on this little island, super close to the Sovereign's base. This will certainly be in range of both the airports. Airstrip now for the Sovereign, kind of south of the original airports to get some coverage on the very southern part of the island, because Animorph is building more production here, which is the right call. And here come another round of bombers. There's 4 aircraft carriers in the north for Tomahawk. We see the strikers landing there now. We'll see if this time they get aggressive in the sortie that they go out for. Now that they've handled Tim Baylor's commandos. And as I say that, 2 helicopters circling over. Tomahawk can't actually see these. There's not enough units, so this is Tomahawk's vision. Once these infantry show up, the helicopters will start being able to attack. And these extra strikers are definitely going to make sure that those commandos are done. The Sovereign's interceptors having decent success taking out one of the bombers. We'll probably get a second one by the time this is over. And they do. 6 SAMs for Animorph, with the 7th on the way. So a full dot of SAMs will be in the south for Orange. And we'll probably look for this dot of SAMs to continue moving forward, because once they're underneath these interceptors, interceptors don't do well at all against a group of SAMs. Huge naval buildup. Tim Baylor going for more drops. This is a great play. At the very least, it keeps a lot of these strikers preoccupied. And we can see that Tomahawk's gas, the beep beep we just heard. It's not like Tomahawk can just do this freely. In fact, building a barracks to deal with these commandos, Tim Baylor is going to snipe that refinery. The next refinery that Tomahawk can build is this one. And the rocket is now on the stand. 1/3 of the way done. De Sovereign is building this refinery close to the shore. And the blue bombers are going to take this looping approach and be met by 7 SAMs. So there's going to be 5 bombers against 7 SAMs. The SAMs should actually do decent in this scenario. At least that would be my read on it. This is now 5 aircraft carriers, black plumes of smoke indicating that Tim Baylor's commandos were very successful in destroying this refinery. And Alpha Team doesn't know it, but they're on a little bit of a timer. Actually, Alpha Team does know it. So this is De Sovereign's vision. There's enough units around here that Blue actually sees this rocket, and that's probably what's prompted these blue boats to head south. So the SAMs do alright. They'll in fact get every single bomber here. And we'll have to see if Animorph can defend this launch pad. With this number of bombers of the Navy, I think that De Sovereign's gonna be able to do, or pardon me, that Animorph's gonna be able to do this and get this rocket off. De Sovereign's building a rocket of his own here, close to the main base, probably in response to all of this. This is a pretty scary push from Animorph. Certainly with the bomber support as well. And I think this looks like there is a move-out attempt from Tim Baylor. Both teams kind of struggling with the energy at this point. These are red submarines attacking this one cruiser, and they do get it. This mountain range is very important. Once Animorph gets through this mountain range, this push will speed up quite a bit. But it'll be slow going until Orange can do that. Animorph's vision, none of this launch pad isn't detected. Here comes the big fight between De Sovereign and Animorph in the south. It's a lot of cruisers for blue, but it looks like there's just as many for orange. And this is starting to be a little bit of a tough situation for Alpha Team. Mostly considering that this rocket is going to go off. There's really not much that De Sovereign can do about it at this point. Maybe running in these cruisers to snipe it. But we can see this rocket is very close to being done. I'm not even sure if these cruisers would have been able to destroy the launch pad in time. And here come the bombers again to work on these blue cruisers. Rocket is getting launched. It'll be interesting to see where it decides to go. And the answer is probably, I guess, right on this refinery and these reinforcing units. So the only good thing for blue here is that none of the production structures were hit. There's enough bombers for disarmament that maybe they could destroy this launch pad. And there's also a chance that this field of view in the replay isn't actually entirely accurate and the disarmament can't actually see it. Tim Baylor's starting to move forward. Still struggling with this energy crisis. But certainly there's more red boats than teal boats. So if all these red boats could magically move, I think that Tim Baylor could take this fight. Still no economic development for Tomahawk in the north. And no airstrip as of yet. Animorph is building a very cheeky submarine pen in the bottom. And this is totally stealth from Alpha Team at the moment. There's so many strikers on all these aircraft carriers. And not only are they great to have, they also look cool. And that's a very often overlooked aspect when we talk about unit balance in line war. This is getting a little bit scary. I mean, this fight is going to happen. At some point. Disarmament now has a rocket 1/3 of the way done. There is no second rocket for Animorph as of yet. In top-down view, we'd expect no real movement here. There's no proxy bases for either team. Tim Baylor toys with the idea of going for it. Backs up, though. There's enough red boats around that the subs are detected, but subs still have very decent DPS, or rather damage output with those torpedoes in big enough numbers. Bombers taking on some entrenched SAMs and a handful of interceptors here. But this is one pretty big blob for Animorph. The blue rocket is probably still about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes away from completing. But once it does, it'll at least be able to destroy this forward part of Yellow's arm or Orange's army. The navies in the north moving ever so slightly more close to each other over time. A little bit of fighting on the northern end of that line. And Animorph's now moving the boats in. This choke is huge because Animorph's going to be able to get these cruisers close enough, and they're going to distract, at the very least, all of these blue reinforcement units. Which will make this army, it's even easier for it to push northward. And we'll see where this rocket goes. There's a chance that disarmament could actually kill some of Animorph's navy along with this. And here we go. This is what it's all about. A bunch of strikers. There's not actually... I mean, there's a decent amount of missile boats here. I have no idea who's winning this fight. I'm watching it just like you. I think that Teal is going to be able to clean this up just because of how many strikers there are. And I was just about to say, I bet I'm missing the rocket in the south. And I was. It does a decent job, but it really just delays this inevitable push. Animorph's got the submarine in the bottom. Great response time from disarmament with the bombers and the interceptors. And what a fight here. The bombers for Orange are probably what's going to tip this, but even then, it looks like almost a wash. Alpha Team's Northern Navy is totally destroyed, but Tomahawk no longer has an escort for all these aircraft carriers. I'm not sure whose submarines these are. These might actually be Tim Baylor's. And two very distinct fights going on in this game. Okay, so great cleanup from the submarine. Animorph is just going to say, I don't even care. I'm building another submarine in the exact same spot. Stop me. And because of how damaged this port is, the first submarine out of this is probably going to be able to actually take that out. Another great drop from Tim Baylor in the north. Super sneaky. I barely noticed it. Transport boats along the north. Even with a little, like a few SAMs here. And so these must be Tomahawk subs. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, this is Animorph's vision? Never mind then. These are Tim Baylor subs. So still no risk of Alpha Team losing any of the trade routes in the north. In the race of the rockets, Animorph nearly has this rocket done. The Sovereign's a little bit behind. Not by any fault of their own, just because the rockets take so long to build. But it's interesting to see if Animorph can see this rocket. So Animorph doesn't actually know where the launch pad is for the Submarine. So it's not like they can use that rocket to take out the launch pad all that easily. And here it goes. It might do the exact same thing. So here come the bombers. The rocket is going to be able to destroy the SAMs. There's going to be no anti-air here for blue. So two full airports of bombers are going to do a ton of damage right now. We'll see the interceptors get launched from blue potentially. There are still 4 on this airstrip that's covered in debris. And kind of an interesting situation in that all these aircraft carriers are relatively exposed. We'll see if Tim Baylor just runs the boats forward to try to jump on them. It's a pretty scary spot for Tim Baylor to just like want to go forward, to be fair. Since they probably don't want to overextend their navy and then lose it all. 4 interceptors, great response time, taking out 1 bomber. Trading some of the interceptors that run into these SAMs for orange. And the rocket for blue is now complete. Submarine for yellow is complete, so let's see if I'm right that this first submarine is able to destroy the port. At this point, the port's actually regenerated its health a decent amount. The submarine finally wins this naval battle. And in the best case scenario for blue, they'll be able to push forward to at least destroy this town and port. But there are still a decent number of bombers for orange that can be used defensively. Tomahawk might be moving the aircraft carriers in range of this blue army, and that's exactly what's happening. The aircraft carriers forming together to be one giant long runway, as you normally see. And I'd say if we look top down, nothing has really happened on the land distribution part of things. Destroyer and planes in for blue. Will be able to destroy the submarine before it destroys the port. And besides the success that Animorph is having in the south here, this is still a very even game. Here come the airstrips from Animorph. So over time, these bomber numbers are going to get huge for orange. We already see that Tomahawk has A huge mass of strikers. Still building more of them. Nice play from Red with these submarines to destroy one of the aircraft carriers. And great defense from Blue, still not losing this port in the bottom. More factories from Orange, I'm not really sure where... So Animorphs put this very close to the front lines. It's probably still safe given how many artillery pieces the SAMs are covering this, including the approaching Navy. This factory in the center probably going to be building SAMs potentially to cover these commandos, but in the meantime all these strikers are going to go uncontested unless the Sovereign sends some interceptors over here. But what an enormous amount of bombers for Orange. Here comes the rocket for the Sovereign, probably going to land potentially right here. Or on the launch pad for Animorph, destroying this rocket as well. Am I tripping? I thought there's like a bunch of yellow artillery here, or orange artillery here. Something took it out, so the Sovereign's gonna be able to push back a little bit. Here comes a landing from Tim on top of the gas. These units are actually just going to target the refinery instead of trying to fight these infantry. Red missile boats trying to fend off these cruisers from the transport boats. And there is more reinforcements. Red is going to be able to destroy that refinery. Tomahawks, thankfully for them, has set up more refineries in the meantime. And I see the timer on the top of the screen. I don't even know who's going to win this game. This is kind of deadlocking a little bit. Like, DeSovereign's having some success in holding this back. When DeSovereign sets up this refinery, I'd say that that's probably a win for Blue in the bottom. And great positioning from these red missile boats to handle these bombers, and maybe this is how it ends, that Tim Baylor destroys all these aircraft carriers and DeSovereign holds on in the south. Certainly Red is starting to push quite far forward. Missile boats against the aircraft carriers. There's not that many strikers left for Teal. And there's another rocket being built, or rather the launch pad being built for Orange, who will lose this factory on the other side of the mountains. And Red's gonna land on the north part of the map on this little island with these two refineries. And there actually are a decent number of commandos here to push towards this refinery. And Bravo team would be on the back foot. All these boats for Alpha team could just continue pushing forward. There's nothing really to stop them except for these 3 cruisers, and that's it. Good game, well played to all 4. Let's check these graphs. Is it as close as I said it was? Wow. Can't believe you just watched this video when I said it was that close. And apparently Alpha team was crushing in... I mean, we knew that they were going to be crushing in Eco, but I didn't think it would be by this much. Well played, both teams. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more about the game, check out the Line War Discord. Like I said earlier in the video, the grand finals for the 1v1 tournament is on the way. Something is in the works. It will be posted. I'll let you know as soon as it is and where it is and what that looks like. There's the other tournament games on the channel if you want to check those out in preparation for this AK, MISC, and Tomahawk final. I hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. Check it out on Twitch, twitch.tv/SodaQuackers. Same name as on here on YouTube. Thanks for the support. We'll see you around. Enjoy. Have fun. Peace.